guys, welcome to the TOWTalk Podcast live stream. It's Tuesday, and I'm Denise. Neil is not with us this evening. However, if you've been following all our socials, our special guest today is Town of Wallkill Supervisor Frank DenDanto, and he is here to answer some questions and tell you all about himself. Let's just give a couple of minutes here to get people to connect, because it does take a few minutes. As we go through here, I'm going to be interviewing Frank for us. I have some questions, and I've invited you, the audience, to post some questions if you have any. When doing so, just to keep the chat from being too cluttered, just put question in bold letters so I can see it. All right. So Frank, how you doing?
Hey, Denise, how you doing?
Good. So it is awesome to have you here. I got, oh boy, why don't you take, before we even get into any, serious stuff, you've been a supervisor here for a while, and a lot of people that are watching this or who might catch the stream, after it's been uploaded, tell us a little about yourself, your background, your career, your family, and your connection to the town of Wallkill.
Sure thing. First of all, let me thank you again for having me here the first time on live. So this is kind of fun.
Yeah, it is.
I have been on a couple times, which I have been very thankful to be invited. So thank you for that again. Here's a little bit about me. My name is Frank DenDanto. I'm the supervisor for the town of Wallkill, and I have been a resident for the town for most of my life. Spent a little bit of time away getting educated and doing a little bit of a professional stint down in the city. I am actually in the business, so to speak. I have been doing performing arts for the better part of nearly 30 years. That's dating me. This is all rather familiar for me, although I will say that I don't normally sit on this side of the camera. I'm normally on the other side of the camera doing the lighting thing. So this is kind of fun and exciting to be a little bit of a role reversal. The long and the short of it is that I've been a lifelong resident in the area. I grew up in the city of Middletown, the corner of Sproat Street and Wisner in Ward 1, for the city of Middletown in a Italian and German Welsh Scotch family. It's a rather large family, so there are probably viewers that know a DenDanto or two kicking around in the world of Wallkill and Middletown. Of course, we've sort of spread out the DenDanto diaspora, as it were. But I've been in the area on and off my entire life, and proud to be back. I came back actually in 2001, and for real, moved out of Brooklyn fully in 2004, and then closed up my consulting studio in 2006, and then just ran my business from Wallkill, from my home address, and sort of went all over the world doing theater and dance and performance art as a lighting designer and a lighting consultant, and then also working in the museum market and then in the luxury retail market as well. So doing permanent installations, architectural design work. So
wow.
I got a pretty broad background. Then after a little while, I had an opportunity to get involved locally with some items that I was generally interested in through college. I was an environmental activist in college. I was a bit of an environmental activist in my early professional life. I've been a member of Sullivan Environment. I've been a member of the Bashkill Area Association. So I was a big advocate for green spaces and clean water and migration protection and all of that fun stuff, and sort of got dragged into the municipal world in that area. And that sort of sprungboard itself into some development that was happening in my neighborhood right around the corner in Bloomingburg. I was very vocal in that, and also still very vocal in the environmental advocacy area with the development of CPV over in Waybayonda, and found myself to a Town of Wallkill meeting. At the time, Ed Diana was the supervisor, and attempted to advocate for our community in terms of clean air, and was promptly told that I was above my pay grade. And
Oh,
yeah, so I took a little umbrage with that, and decided that I was going to get into the race and run against Mr. Diana. And surprise, surprise, I won. So
nice.
yeah, I shared the distinction of beating Mr. Diana with one other Wallkill Middletown resident, a gentleman by the name of Richard Baum. He was the chief of staff for Elliot Spitzer. He was in Spitzer's administration, and I think he's now on faculty at NYU, teaching politics. He might be retired by now, but he and I are the only two individuals who have ever beaten Mr. Diana in a political contest. So I'm kind of proud of that.
And
yeah.
Ed Diana was a career politician, right?
He was a career politician. Yeah, he came up through the ranks in Wallkill, and then went on into the county area. He was at the county for a very long time, and then decided that he was going to leave the county platform and come back into local politics in the town of Wallkill. He ran unopposed. In the second term after Supervisor Depew left the town, he resigned from the town to go up to Sullivan County. And in the subsequent race, Mr. Diana ran and he ran unopposed. So I just felt like I didn't think I was above my pay grade, and I kind of wanted to jump into it and see how things turned out. And I won.
Oh, nice. All right. So this is your second term.
Yes.
So what kind of lessons did you learn? And, how is it different then? And what would you do? What are you doing different now? If you take a looking back.
So it is my second term, and I did learn a tremendous amount. I think that there is something really important to be said for running for office. It is an altruistic move. I believe a lot of individuals who are called to run for office generally run for office for the right reasons. Doesn't really matter what party you're in. I think that they get started with the mindset that they want to create some change in the mechanism that is governing. And you very quickly realize that there are a ton of things that you don't know. There's a ton of things about governing that you don't know. And you play a lot of catch up. It's a lot of learning by way of drinking through a fire hose. So I did have a great experience in that educational arc in my first term, because I stepped directly into the line of fire after I was elected. Coming into the town, one of the platforms that I had was that I believed at the time that the town finances were they were at that moment questionable to me. I didn't realize the scale at which the problem was that I would later on discover in the subsequent months. But I walked directly into a hornet's nest in that respect as well, from a political place, because once it became clear that I was focused on cleaning up those finances and making sure that the town was accountable to the taxpayers, there were individuals on the town board and individuals who were former town board members and individuals who were connected professionally to the town that had a real vested interest in making sure I went quiet. So, I learned really, really quickly that your friends may not be your friends, and that this animal has teeth. And what we think about in terms of local politics as it being relatively benign is not true. People really are focused on making sure that if you in any way happen to wander into their purview where they have been, running things unadulterated, then they will have lots to say about that. So I learned that in my first term. And I have been very smart, I think, in this past few months to make sure not to make some of the missteps, the naive missteps that I made in the first 6 to 10 months, my first term.
Yeah, I speaking now with Neil and also speaking with you, the most common thing you guys say is that you don't know what you don't know until you're there. And then all of a sudden it's sort of like just a water flow or tsunami of just shit, really,
Yeah, yeah,
that comes at you from all different directions.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, this public service, it isn't as easy as it sounds, and I'm learning that more and more as I just navigate through this journey of doing this podcast.
Yeah,
So
I will agree wholeheartedly. Now I will also say too that I come to the table with a little bit of a different pedigree than many individuals who come to the table in that altruistic move, right? I have an executive leadership background. I run my own business. I've worked with some fairly high profile clients with some budgets that are relatively large. So the numbers, the math, the accounting, all of that stuff was, uh, you know, very familiar to me. And also running crews and, the size of 200 to 300 folks trying to get a show in, or 150 folks trying to get a show in, in an area or an environment that isn't conducive to doing shows in a festival setting where, everything is temporary. So there's a lot of thinking on the fly. These are things that are second nature to me. And so when I sort of jumped in and realized we were going to be learning again, drinking from a fire hose, it was it was easy for me to pivot. And much of what the town runs on in terms of development stuff, taxes, and so the accounting around nonprofits, that's a thing I know from theater. Working with large budgets and lots of zeros on your spreadsheets, that's the thing I know from theater, or in running my own business. Dealing with complicated and challenging individual personality types, that's a thing I know from both my business consulting from theater. And these are things that were you make me unique to the position. So it was a little bit easier for me to get up the pace.
yeah,
And I think really the probably the biggest thing that I learned in that first term was, yeah, the people who are friendly to you, they're probably really not your friends.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a bummer though when you think about
Yeah.
it.
It it was a hard pill to swallow. But that said, this past term has been way easier. Also, the difference being is that when Neil and I sat on the board together, it was just him and I against a predominantly Republican
Well, you had a
administration.
Republican majority, right? It was a 3-2
It was
majority.
there was a Democrat who sat on the board, but we like to refer to those individuals as dinos. Um,
Yes.
a Democrat in name only. Who had been at the dais for a long, long time. So it was sort of established a hierarchy as being the old guy in the room who knew all the tricks. And, he really worked that seat and was very, very savvy and very political. And, so Neil and I were left out in the cold quite a bit for most of that time.
Yes. So since we're on the topic of finances, um, you know, let's talk about what you walked into this January when you walked in. So early in this administration, it became apparent that the town was facing some serious financial problem and potentially running out of available funds. So can you kind of walk us through what you discovered and how bad was the situation?
Sure. On the second week of my being elected, so the second week of January, I was met with the comptroller and the deputy comptroller for the town, and they pulled me aside to say, well, they didn't really pull me aside. They basically talked to me over the counter. I was standing down in the planning department, and their statement was very clearly, we need to talk to you about payroll. And I said, okay, what do you need to know about payroll? And they said, we need to know where the money's coming from. And I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean? And they said, we don't have enough money to cover payroll. And
Wow.
I said, what do you mean you don't have enough money to cover payroll? The budget should have carried you through to the end of January. That's how you should have budgeted at the town. And they were clear to say that that's not how the previous administration had approached the budgeting, and that there was no funding currently in the lines that were necessary to cover the payroll as it stood. So we did some really fancy fast footwork to try to get that covered in a way that wasn't going to get any checks bounced back to us. And we did. We covered payroll, and we maneuvered some money around so that we could get through to the end of February, which is when all the ratables, your taxes come due. And we were able to borrow a little bit against some of the taxes that had already been paid. So we are entering 26 with a deficit to the tune of, I don't know, like $500,000 that we owe ourselves for covering that payroll thing. That has been paid back to us at this point, but had we not had that ability, we would have been really stuck.
Wow. So, I mean, did you have any issues for those first few weeks having the town, keeping the town functioning during that time?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, we had to really think about what the expenses were going into February, most specifically from a payroll standpoint, to make sure that we weren't overspending the lines that we currently had just backfilled. So we had to be very mindful about what that meant. We were lucky enough to dodge a couple storms. Most of those storms happened at the beginning part of the year in January. So it was a little bit quieter. So it was a little bit easier for us to think maybe forward in terms of that. But, we were paying attention to the weather. We're paying attention to, who was working when, why, and where. And, of course, just nonstop communication with the receiver of taxes and the town comptroller to make sure that there was a line in terms of a lifeline in terms of the 26 tax roll so that we could manage to get down to the end of February and over the threshold wholly. So, yeah, I mean, we had to scramble a little bit and think fast on our feet so that people could stay employed. And we didn't have to cut folks because there were some folks who were on vacation, which was kind of good because that was already covered. And we didn't get into a big overtime draw, which would have really hurt us. So we got lucky there. All things being equal, we lucked out is probably the biggest thing that saved us, is that our timing was good.
Yes, yes. And, so later on in the year, early this summer, or even before the summer, you were able to coordinate a $4 million state assistance between Senator Skoufis and Assemblywoman Paula Kay. Can you kind of sort of go through the mechanics of how you were able to do that and how that happened? And
Yeah. So after we received all the taxes for the year, I went through with each department head and with each department head's budget lines, and I parceled down each one of those lines with the department heads. And then I tasked them to pull back an additional 20% off of the original pullback that I started in January. So everybody sharpened their pencils, and we pulled back the entire town budget for 26 back 20% fully. That was item number one. Item number two was, the reason I did that was because I knew that there was no way at that point, having looked at the budgeting the way that it was worded, that the town had made a resolution in November to draw against this non-existent fund balance to fund 26 to the tune of $2 million. And then it drew on itself $2 million for 25, which had invoices that were rolling into 26. So there's a total of $4 million shortage. Looking forward, there was no way that we were going to be able to make up $4 million over the course of the year. That was just not a feasible thing. So while I was doing that, I was sort of diving into the travesty that was the New York State Comptroller's theft of $400,000 that occurred back in 23, and realized that there may be some talking points at the state level, specifically to the New York State Comptroller's office, that might help us make a better argument as to why we were on the rocks. And while we were made whole on that $400,000, ultimately, what it did do was it put a glaring light on the shortfalls at the accounting department. And really, that was an issue going all the way back to my first administration in 2021. So with the 20% reduction, I thought that maybe now would be a good time as any to ask the state for a lifeline. I knew that the state had provided some sort of lifeline to Washingtonville. I knew that the state was in a conversation with Montgomery because those two municipalities were roughly in the same boat that we were in, not to the extent, but they were in the same boat. And so I knew that the state was at least listening to those requests. So I did a Hail Mary and thought, what's the worst thing that can happen? They're going to come back and say no. And then I'll have to come up with a different approach. And so over the course of about a week, I strategized what a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C looked like. And they went something like this. Plan A, I'm going to ask the state for a lifeline. They're going to give me a lifeline. It's going to be great. We're going to survive 26, and I'll figure out how to get through 27. Plan B, they don't give me a lifeline, but I asked to borrow money from them because in the midst of all of this, as I'm sure your listeners know, we lost our bond rating because we didn't finish out our books. The town has to finish its books every year. It's called an AFR. We have to file it with the state. And to keep our bond rating, we have to have those AFRs filed. And we didn't file ours. And in fact, we hadn't filed one since 21. So when I arrived, 22 was just closing. It hadn't yet been closed. It was just in the process of being closed. And of course, 23, 24, and 25 were still open. And 25 didn't need to be closed until May, but it being open wasn't helpful. And so we had no bond rating, which means you can't go borrow money for a municipality. That's your credit rating. And so the other municipalities had bond ratings. They could go and borrow money. My plan B was I go back to the state and say, hey, I don't have a bond rating and I asked for a lifeline and you didn't give it to me. So maybe what you'll do is loan me some money. And hope that perhaps maybe that would resonate with the state. And so I prepared what that would look like. I did the math so that when I did my ask for an attempt to borrow cash, that we would speak about what a rating would look like and what our payback would look like. And so I pulled out and dusted off all of I talked to bankers and asked for money, work vest, and put that on, and got ready to have that conversation while I was tooling the ask directly to Assemblywoman Kay and Senator Skoufis. And then a plan C, because there is a world where neither one of those things works. Plan C was to really dive into the budget and go into austere mode and figure out what absolutely had to run in the town and what absolutely didn't need to run in the town, and go from there. So when I made my initial ask, I made it very clear that I had this plan B and plan C, and it looked like if plan A wasn't going to work, very likely plan B probably wasn't going to work. So it was going to be plan C. So the talking point really was to the state, hey, look, we're out of cash, and the municipality is, for lack of a better term, the previous administration drove the municipality's banking directly into the rocks, and we are going to have to lay off folks, and that's going to be horrible. And, what does that mean? It means that, 94 jobs are going to be on furlough or be in layoff because we don't have the money to make payroll, because our payroll, had we not received the lifeline, would have dried up by November.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was 90. I heard 97 jobs, 94, 97,
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
I think it was 97.
Might as well round,
Yeah.
I think
97.
might as well round it up to 100.
Well, I think that the reality of that was that it was not just DPW jobs or building jobs, it was police officers as well. Probably the lion's share was police officers because I had municipalities and mutual aid that I could fall back on. I could fall back on the sheriff's department. I could fall back on the state police for police management. I can't really do that for, code enforcement. I can't really do that for the clerk's office. I can't really do that for anybody else. So everybody else would have taken a hit too, but probably the PD would have been the hardest. And of course, we live in an environment where that's not really that's not something you want to talk about because things around town are getting things around the country, but things around town are getting a little funny. And, you might need those guys. And I didn't want to have that conversation. And luckily enough, I did not need to have that conversation. Assemblywoman Kay and Senator Skoufis were able to negotiate a lifeline to the town. I will tell you too, and I like to say this, I've repeated this a lot. I have an MFA. I'm an artist, and I had to do a lot of math. I had so much scrutiny to get over the hump. It wasn't just explaining to the assemblywoman or to the senator that the town was in need and that our numbers were squirrely. I had to explain that to the speaker of the assembly. I had to send that. I had to go through my numbers with the Assembly Ways and Means, with the Senate Ways and Means, with the governor's office, with the New York State Comptroller's office. I mean, I did a lot of dog and ponies about how our mathed. And so if I am proud of anything, and I mean, I'm really proud of having pulled that off, but if I'm proud of anything in that, it's that I was able to do all the math correctly. And I just hope if Mrs. Scribner is out there from Middletown High School, I just want to say thanks. I did it. And Elvira Scotto, I don't know what her married name is, but those are my two math teachers, pivotal math teachers in high school. I'm quite sure they did not think I was going to be able to pull that off, but back then, but I was. And really what that was having the ability to be able to do that kind of footwork when you're running your own business, working with $1 million contracts, right? Like you got to be able to do that. And so,
regardless of artistry or whatever, you're going to need some basic math.
Yeah, for sure. And the reality is that it's not really basic math. It's, it's accrual accounting. So you got to have some accounting background. You got to understand how to carry numbers from one year to the next. You got to understand how to close out your books. You got to understand what, from a municipal and in a nonprofit world, what those numbers mean. Like what's the percentage that you can have sitting in your fund balance before it becomes a problem for the state? And how does that become a red flag if you have too much or too little? So knowing what I did was really the cornerstone for being able to get to a place to be able to make a good argument to the state and to the senator and to the assemblywoman. And so I'm very thankful. Jokes aside, I'm very thankful for that, and would not have been able to do that had I not known what I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so does this $4 million, does it solve the problem? Is it just good for this year?
No, it does not solve the problem. It only gets us through this year. We have to solve the problem on our own for 27, which means that I am actively working on creating new ratables for the town. I have been extremely active with Orange County Partnership, Connor Eckert, who is a rock star over at the partnership, and with Steve Gross, who is the Commissioner of Economic Development at the county. The three of us have really been, burning the midnight oil and banging on the drums to make sure that every opportunity that we have that's coming down the pike for Town of Wallkill is, one, a really good fit for the Town of Wallkill, but two, also has a rateable payout that's going to work for the town's benefit in a fairly short timeline. So that is the exercise that we hope will change the conversation for 27. We're going to go into 27 with that really sharp 20% reduction as well. We plan on holding that 20% holdback uh, through 27. I think by 28, if things go as I plan them to go, we'll be back in a place where we'll be making money. But we have to get to 28 to do that.
Right. Right. It's all right. That's actually, but it's still good news. I mean, at least we're not broke, and we were able to save jobs. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was no small effort on the senator's part and the assemblywoman's part, and they did come and do a big press event to talk about the number of
yes.
jobs that were saved at town and what happens when administrations go sideways, right? When they don't pay attention to how to manage their budgets in a very real way, in a very professional and real way. And what I kept hearing, honestly, was, well, we have a comptroller. We don't have to worry about it. Like, we don't have to look at the warrants because the comptroller looks at the warrants. And I was like, I don't think you guys read the book. Like, I feel like you don't know what the gig is. Because like you do need to read the warrants and you need to pay attention to what they're spending money on. And then you need to be fiscally savvy about how to move it around. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
that's the other part of it. So, yeah, we were excited about those things, for sure. But, we have our work cut out. And truth be told, we are not out of the woods because, well, the senator and the assemblywoman were able to get us the $4 million lifeline. It now sits with Ways and Means. So these were not earmark items. They were budget items. And because they were budget items, they now sit at Ways and Means, and Ways and Means gets to distribute them. So there is a world now where we have to do another tap dance to try to get, and that's the three of us, the assemblywoman and the senator and myself, to try to, shake that money loose in time. The clock still is ticking. November is the deadline for us to get some cash so that we can manage to carry our payroll through to the end of January. So we're not done doing fancy footwork. And even if I'm not here in November, which I have full intentions to stick around, whoever sits in this chair better be savvy enough to do that fancy footwork. So that's again, part of the things that you don't know. Like you got to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Maybe a little bit more going into these accounting issues. What do you think went wrong? I mean, these problems go back for years, and I know you've been working on this. Can you give us any insight into some of the things that you might have uncovered in your having to go through all these books?
Yes, we've gone through a lot. The New York State Comptroller's Office has been back at town. They're wrapping up their latest investigation that really is about operational use in the accounting office. So how the town actually manages its money. They have a lot of insights there. But we have a secondary accounting firm, Encora, who is a forensics firm. They were recommended to us through Deloitte. And their sole goal is to figure out where the money went. And so we've learned a lot. Here's what I can tell you about how we got here. It's pretty straightforward. There is an accounting philosophy about over-reporting earnings and under-reporting expenses. It's a little bit of a trick. It's not that it's necessary an illegal move, although you're not supposed to do it in municipal accounting and in nonprofit accounting. And it's a trick that's been developed when you go in front of bankers and you want to look better than you actually are, so they'll give you money.
Yeah.
So you want to look solvent. This is we've heard
Cooking the
a
books,
lot
we
about.
used to call it that.
Yes, cooking your books. So basically what transpired was probably back around 2016-ish, maybe 2015. The town was in roughly the same financial situation where it had pretty much burned up all of its fund balance. It was running at a deficit. And so this philosophy was adopted. And in general, if you are paying attention, you can actually gain back fund balance in terms of value, because if you bank that against your bond rating, it allows you to position more of your expenses inside of bonds or bands rather than actually use your fund balance. What that means is it allows the fund balance to accrue. And the trick in that is that you can't leave that alone. You have to pay attention to it, because if you do leave it alone, especially if you're not actually counting the real costs, in other words, running a second set of books that are the actual books, you lose track of what you actually are taking in and what you're actually expensing out. And if your accounting office is making errors, then that goes sideways really, really fast. And it's unrecoverable. Like, it goes sideways really fast. And if you have a big fund balance, you might be able to recover because you have the savings to fall back on. What the town really did was it just fell back on that cushion year after year after year after year. So from 22, when we closed out 22, we learned that the town had an $11 million fund balance, according to our books. And what we learned in January is that it had just under $1 million left in the fund balance.
So they blew through $10 million.
Yes, since 21. So, yeah. And, I get a lot of noise about, who stole the money. I don't know anybody stole money. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I've never said anybody stole money. I said it was mismanaged. What did occur when the New York State Comptroller's Office came in 23 was they did do a draft report that said that the town had mismanaged over the course of that decade up to $30 million, i.e. the $30 million number. So you'll see in social media a lot of, where's the $30 million? Who stole the $30 million? Here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't know that anybody stole the $30 million. I think somebody maybe had their hands in the cookie jar. There's no question about, I can tell you actually at this point, there is no question that people had their hands in the cookie jar. And at this point, we actually know who those people are. But what I will say to you is this, we're not done looking. So we're not done looking. But what I will also say is, what that says is that the town mismanaged all of those funds, and what it did ultimately do was blow through fund balance that it wasn't supposed to have blown through because they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to ask. Do you think this was to cover they were spending it to cover their shortfalls with the rest of the budget, right?
So yeah, you asked me earlier about how you think we got here. That's exactly how we got there. That coupled with unfettered spending, because we think it's kind of like when you, and I like to use this analogy a lot. If you don't ever balance your checkbook and you put $100 in your checkbook and you don't ever count how many times you write checks, if you're doing the math in your head, you're probably deducting your checks. But if you're not doing any math at all, your checkbook still says you have $100. So if you keep looking at your checkbook,
you're right. If
you keep looking at your checkbook, you're like, I have $100. I'm good. I go out and spend some money. That's what the town did, literally. And when lines went empty, the town just did a budget transfer, and they budget transferred out of the general fund. I mean, here's the other thing too that I want to say, and I know Neil's talked a lot about this. The general accounting practices are a disaster, have been right up until February, maybe even March. Where we were sifting through bank accounts that were being liquidated through the general fund. In other words, the general fund for the town was being used as a clearinghouse. Yeah. Yeah. Which basically means there was a big bucket of money. And as long as people could put their hand in the bucket and grab some money, everybody thought that the bucket had money, which is not the way you budget a town. Like, it's not how you budget yourself. It's not what you do when you have electric bills and mortgage and gas and food. Like, you got to budget that. Each one of those is a line. That's not how the town ran. So, again, not to conflate information, but to be very specific, the town mismanaged $30 million. That's real. That's not my number. That's the New York State Comptroller's number. I didn't make that up. I'm not putting that out there in the universe. That's the New York State Comptroller's number. They put it in a draft report. They gave that draft report to the previous administration. The previous administration sat on it. So they never announced it. They never released it. They never went back and did anything about it. And then, of course, there was this Tobias incident that just sort of sunk everything.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
was bad enough because that was over 2 years he was siphoning off, and nobody caught that.
Yeah,
Like,
and again, there's some big questions about that too, because not only did that nobody catch it, but that it should have been caught, and the way that it got caught was really through the actual bank that was making wire transfers that happened to just do a spot check. So the way that the town had set up doing wire transfers and what kind of back support was required to make the wire transfer was way off the mark. Like there's a lot of ambiguity about the wire transfers from 23 to 25. A lot. And we're looking at that. And I mean, we're really digging it. We're finding and every time we turn over a stone, we find something new. So, um, you know, here's again, what I'm going to tell you quite specifically is we are going to get to the bottom of it and figure out where the holes are and where the town has been leaking money. Either, because of poor accounting practices or because somebody had their hand in the cookie jar. Either way, we're going to get to the bottom of it. And, those individuals who are responsible are going to be held accountable for that, because that's, if you're an elected, that's your role. Your job literally is to protect tax dollars. That's it.
yeah.
That is your sole goal. Yeah. That you are the fiduciary for the town. So it's not just about whether or not you get to pick out the new playground equipment. It's whether or not you're spending the appropriate money out of the appropriate line to buy said playground equipment. So, again, moving forward, because again, you hear on social media, well, the number's moving all over the place. No, the number's not. What's really missing out of the fund balance is $4 million for 26. That's real. That really occurred. That's not me. That's the town comptroller saying we don't have enough money to make payroll. So, and I wasn't even in office, but 5 days. So there's no way that could have been me. But that is a real thing that occurred that got us to ask for $4 million. And I had to do a dog and pony to make sure that everybody on the state, every single person that had an interest in this, made sure my math mathed. So there's no way that this face could have pulled off. Like I literally had somebody tell me I'm such a good looking guy that's what I somehow hoodwinked the entire state and convinced them to get
bamboozled everybody. I saw that.
Bamboozled everybody. I'm a razzmatazz guy. I'm a razzmatazz. Doing jazz hands. Yeah. I mean, that's ludicrous. That's a ludicrous statement. It's a ludicrous statement.
You had the
go
top
ahead.
you had the top financial people in the state examine this, right?
Yes,
had their hands in this. So, come on, that is insane.
It's ridiculous. And then and we come back to the secondary number, which is this, from 22 to 25, we went from $11 million to, just under $1 million. Again, not my math. I didn't come up with the $11 million. They did the AFR. The former administration did the AFR. The town said they had $11 million. The town did not have fund balance to make payroll in January. You do the math. Like, this is not rocket science. This is not me pointing fingers to try to make people feel bad or look bad or win elections. This is literally me saying, geez, you know what? My $17,000 worth of tax dollars that I spent last year to the town on my property tax, that right there disappeared somewhere. And if that doesn't make you annoyed and want to hold somebody accountable, I don't know what will. I really don't. I really
100%.
So, I mean, some people say, corruption happens in government. Corruption happens. And I say, no, we're really angry with Miss Pelosi. We're really angry with the Clintons. Like, we're angry. We're angry because they inside trade. There's no rules saying they can't inside trade, but they're doing it and we're angry about it. We're angry with right now on the other side. We're angry with Trump. He's minting coins. He's doing all kinds of fun things. He's making his family rich. We're angry about that. Well, either we're angry or we're not. Either we're going to say we're going to do something about it or we're not going to do something about it. And I'm just of the mindset that we should try to do something about it.
I agree. And, and to that point, I know you've been working at this. How far along? I know that I think you said earlier you said that you had to complete the 2022 audit coming in, that didn't actually get finished by the previous administration, who invested a chunk of cash in doing that. So can you give us, I don't know, maybe an ETA as to how far we are along year-wise in getting them closed?
Sure.
And do you think we can get caught up by the end of the year?
So the plan is to get caught up by the end of the year, and to close out 25 inside of 26. So that would make us current. Right now, we are working very, very hard to close 23. We are running into reconcile issues on the bank accounts because the accounting department was doing whatever it was doing they weren't reconciling the accounts in real time over 22 and 23 and 24. So every time we think that we got the bank accounts reconciled, somebody comes up with some back support that has a date on it that has us going right back to square one. That said, 23 should be closed out by the end of the month. 24 is in process right now. The hope is that we get 24 closed out by at the end of October, and that we get 25 closed out by the end of December. That's the game plan. The exercise specifically is that I need to be able to go back to Ways and Means and say, please give me the money that we have been afforded in this lifeline, because we've done these closeouts and the only one that we have left to do is the one that is in this year, and that will be enough for them to give us the $4 million in whole. Rather than stretch it out or give us a piecemeal of it and decide that they're going to drag it into 27 because we have got to close out 25 in the process. So all of these things matter in this discussion. There are a lot. It's like a 3-level chess. You got to be, working the top level and working the bottom level and working the middle level all at the same time. But the timeline, like I said, is this month for 23, October for 24, December for 25.
Got it. Well, that's good, because it's interesting, because your opponent in this upcoming campaign has talked about she's going to close the books. So it's
hopefully
interesting.
that won't be necessary. Hopefully it won't be necessary because she won't be elected, but hopefully it won't be necessary because we will have gotten it all done.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we covered a lot about accountability here. Well, by the way, I'm looking at my notes here of what I took down. But once all of this accounting work is completed, do you think residents would be able to get a clear accounting of what actually happened? Like,
Yeah, I do. I do. I think that we will know once we're all done with the closeouts, and once Ancora is done with their forensic audit. We will know how the money was mismanaged. We will know where the accounts are that need to be buttoned up. We will know who fiduciarily had responsibility for making choices and decisions that got the town into that place. If there are laws that are broken, we will address those, and that will be the end of that. And then it will be up to a court of law to figure out what the next step is. The town at that point should feel at least confident that we have closed all the gaps. The next big hurdle will be filling up the bucket again with, the resources necessary to operate the town of this size.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. All right. Well, I think we've covered this topic extensively.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a little controversy. So, your opponent has criticized your hours that you put in here with the town. I mean, all kinds of slop is going around, and claims that you're not full time. What's your response to that?
It's to openly laugh. First of all, openly laugh because, wow, if I can do all of this on the hours that they keep telling me I'm working, I think it's 4. I
Like an hour a day.
I'm telling you, someone ought to give me a much better job. Now, I will tell you that I cut a deal with my wife when I ran for office in this one year, that we all understood what I was up against. There was no world where I was going to walk away from my profession or my career for a 1 year gig. And that it was just going to have to be that I was going to be like many other supervisors in the county and have a day gig while I was the supervisor of the town. So that's a reality. I don't spend a lot of time, with my family because I'm hustling and moving, trying to get town business done, making sure I'm, doing all the meetings that are necessary to continue this kind of development and growth, to do this kind of math and accounting, to work with these kind of consultants, to deal with these kind of state officials. And, from a development place with the federal officials that are involved in the conversation, MTA and whatnot, Port Authority, those guys. So the long and the short of it is that it is quite literally ludicrous again that I somehow can do all of this in a part-time world. Now, I will also tell you, I know, right? I'm telling you.
Giving you more credit than I think they meant to.
I don't think that they intended that to be the outcome. I'm quite sure. But I will say that, this level of dedication isn't for the faint of heart. I get up at 4:00 every morning. I don't go to bed until 11:30 at night. This is my schedule. I do this every day, 7 days a week. I work on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and that's not including professional events, town events that I have to be at. So, all of this is happening in the background while I'm, doing teas and conducting town business at either work sessions or town board meetings, which we doubled. That's another thing. We were able to double the amount of exposure that the town had. I did that. And, do big policy shifts like, rethink how the parking is happening in town, make a concerted effort on, feral cat laws. I mean, this stuff is like quality of life stuff, and get term limits on the ballot, actually have an open dialogue and a conversation about why it's important for the taxpayer to decide whether or not all of this noise that they have been making, myself included, about why term limits are important, to actually have an opportunity to decide on term limits. It's not for the town board to decide whether or not we put it out into the universe and talk about it. I had lots of people tell me, just put it to bed. Like, don't even bring it up. And I'm like, people keep asking me to bring it up. And part of the reason why we're in this boat is because people sat on that dais for year after year after year and got complacent and honestly believed that there was no reason to look at the warrants. So this tells me that there has to be turnover because the level of corruption is relatively easy at the town. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, it is. Once you know where the loopholes are, it is really a character statement as to whether or not you don't exploit them.
Point.
Like so instead of relying on someone's ability to lean in on their character, just close the cookie jar. Like, if you leave the cookie jar open on the counter and the kids are in the room, they're going to be missing cookies, especially if you go away and you don't pay attention to the kids.
And then you come home and you find the kid, with a mouth full of cookies. They got the chocolate on the face and on their hands. And you're like, why did you put your hands in the cookies? I don't know
what you're talking about. And they're in a sugar coma. Yeah.
We got a question here from Jim TOW. I'm going to post this up here. Would you consider including the town's comptroller to report out in future board meetings? They could report out on the various fund balances and the status of reconciling the 80+ accounts.
Absolutely. And there was a world where we were considering that this time around, just in our town board meetings when I have department head reports. The problem with that is that they can't really report on much because they're still in the process of reconciling. So they can't really talk about what the general account has, what the fund balance has, what any of those things have, because until we do our AFRs, we don't have a clear idea of what's there and what's not there. So all they could really do is speak to whether or not the warrants are adequate, and they already do that by issuing the warrants. So, but yes, in the future, the game plan for 27 is that the New York City, that the town comptroller speak to the town the same way that all the rest of the department heads speak to the town. Yes.
Nice. And I just posted a note from Don. This isn't a question, just great job, Frank. Your experience and context made all the difference in succeeding with obtaining support from the state for 2026. Your math does math. I've seen it. He's seen it. So, all right. So let's move on here. What do I have next? Accessibility. Sorry, I'm just going through my notes to see, because some things we've actually covered. You've actually just covered it for me, so I don't need to go and rehash stuff. All right. So here's a question underneath legitimate politics here. So suppose I'm a resident who doesn't care whether you're working from town hall, your phone, your car, or somewhere else. How do I know my supervisor is accessible when I need him?
Call the number. Call me. Yeah, you can call me direct. Call me direct at the town hall. Call me on my cell phone. I'm happy to get 917-848-8957 is the cell number. That's my direct number. Goes directly to me. You can call me. If I'm not sitting in town hall, if it doesn't ring twice, it goes directly to my cell phone, so it will ring wherever I'm at. If I can't pick up the phone because I'm in a meeting, Luce will pick up the phone. If you need to speak to me person to person, you speak to Luce. She'll get you on the calendar, and I will sit down with you anytime, day or night, Monday through Monday. I have no issues meeting anybody at their address. You come to town hall, doesn't matter. I'm 100% accessible. If I don't pick up the phone, I will pick it up immediately after I get the message.
There you go. So, you already covered some of your accomplishments, like the adding the board meetings and some legislation that you've done. Maybe you could add any other accomplishments you'd like to add, and then I want to talk about the proposed Walmart project, and that's a topic by itself.
For sure.
Before we get into this, what else can you tell us you've done? I
can tell you that we were finally able to get rid of the moratorium on warehouses, which was a good move. For those people who maybe don't know, the town had a moratorium for many years on warehouses. That was very concerned about the warehouse development, didn't really have a clear warehouse policy or zoning for warehouses specific outside of commercial zoning. And so it opened up a lot of opportunity for a lot of pieces of property to be exploited for warehouse development.
We're living through that right now.
Yeah. So the problem with that is that most of those were just big empty steel buildings that were getting put up on spec, with the landlord hoping that they would attract somebody to the area who wanted a warehouse, because warehouses are, the next big bubble.
They're all the rage.
They're all the rage. We're moving out of the warehouse conversation these days. We're now into battery storage. That's a big thing. Data centers is another big thing. So we're trying to be forward thinking on those items, but we were able to lock down some code language that actually worked very specific to the Town of Wallkill's desire to manage how warehouses get built. So we've identified areas that are conducive to warehouses. There are probably 4 or 5 prior to the moratorium, so 4 or 5 years ago, that were in the hopper, so to speak. They had preliminary site plan approval prior at the planning department prior to the moratorium being levied. Those will probably proceed now that the moratorium is up. That said, there's not much that we can do about those. They already had preliminary site plan approval. Now, the town has been very specific about where warehouses can go. and that area has been shrunk considerably to locations on or around 8617, and the on ramps and off ramps around 86 and 17, and a little bit around 84. So it's now specific to those locations and nowhere else. So that said, I will segue into the Walmart conversation. Walmart has owned a piece of property for almost 20 years, actually probably a little bit longer than 20 years, over right on the border of Mamakating and the town of Wallkill on 17K off of exit 116. They have owned that property, like I said, for many, many years, and they showed up in February and said, we're considering doing a distribution site, and we're considering this location that we own and another location in just outside of North Adams, Massachusetts, in the Beckett area. And we don't own that property, so we're leaning on perhaps using the property that we own. And we were in the process of lifting the moratorium. And when they finally made a decision to come to Wallkill because they owned the property, they didn't have to expense any extra money. It just so happened that their property sat in an area that is zoned currently now with the moratorium lifted, with the new zoning, for warehouses. So they own the property. They're in an area that they're zoned properly. And so they're back at the town in front of planning with a slightly amended footprint. It's actually a little smaller than their initial footprint. The building is a little bit bigger itself, but they're coming to the town of Wallkill with a project that is $1.6 billion. That's billion dollars. There is right now site plan development that is going to keep that piece of property shielded for the most part from 17K. Okay. And for the most part shielded off of 1786. So really the only way that you will actually be able to see this building, aside from hiking through the woods off of Stone Schoolhouse Road and 17K, is to crane your neck. If you're driving towards Monticello, you got to crane your neck as you hook to the left and go up the hill towards Wurtsboro. You got to look over your shoulders. So I don't recommend that because you're going to drive off the road. So the only really good way to see that development is by coming down from Monticello. As you come down the hill, you'll get a good line of sight probably in autumn and winter when the leaves are down. When the leaves aren't down, it will be obstructed in that respect. But yeah, that property is that project is. It looks like that's going to happen.
Very good. How long are you still waiting on confirmation, or have they actually said they're going to go forward?
No, they've said they're going to go forward. They're in front of the zoning board for a height variance. They need to be a little bit higher than what we normally allow in town to accommodate their robotics. As I mentioned, it's a distribution hub. It's not a warehouse spacing, so it's not truck transfer. It's actually distribution. It's their Northeast Distribution Center. The next closest one that they have would be in Pennsylvania, and it's chock full of robotics. So they're talking about bringing upwards of, they say 1,500. I'll be happy with 1,000 jobs out on or around $60,000 starting. So this is a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for the town because it means our kids can maybe stick around and get a job here. They can get a job using tech because, again, like I said, robotics is going to have a lot of engineering backgrounds. It's going to have programmer backgrounds along with the pickers. Those cats probably won't be at the $60,000 mark, but certainly engineering will be. Certainly the operators will be. Certainly the maintenance people will be, because all of that stuff is high tech. So it's not something that you got to have a background and a degree to be able to do. And it's a lot of robotic equipment. So they have a vested interest in how the site is managed and being a partner with the town, because they're about to plant, about $700 million worth of robotic equipment into a building.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a small task. They also were very amicable to being green friendly. When I met with them and they were telling me that they were considering coming here, they asked me very directly, what would be your ask of us? And I said very pointedly, I would like a green building. I would like an energy efficient building. I would like maybe a LEED certified building. And they didn't flinch at all. And
Wow.
I
That's
think that this
nice.
is
Nice.
important. I said I would like some protection on the kill because it buffers the kill, and they had no problem with that. And that speaks volumes to keeping our wetlands and migratory water spaces available to wildlife. And so that was encouraging. And then lastly, I said, you got to navigate the fire companies. Like you got to get with those guys because they're going to have some opinions about the height of your building. And they said, we are happy to work with the fire companies, and whatever they ask for, they'll get. So I can tell you that they don't need trucks. They have, I think every company in the battalion has a ladder truck that goes to 100 feet or better. But that's not the only thing that they would need. So the thing that I'm getting from Walmart is that they seem to be very eager to be a good partner. They're not asking us what the town can provide. They haven't even come to the town for a pilot. In fact, as far as I know, as recently as...
That's interesting.
I know, right? As recently as last week, I had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and Steve Gross. So Heather Bell and Steve Gross were at the town. We were doing a thing about, why it's good to do business at the town. And we talked about Walmart. And I said, they haven't been to the town the town IDA looking for a pilot. And Steve volunteered that they haven't been to the county either. So right now, the discussion is at a full ratable assessment, which means take
no 10-year discount, right?
Yeah, with no 10-year discount, take $1.6 billion worth of value, amortize that over the percentage that you pay on your property taxes, and figure out what that number is going to be for the town. I'm going to tell you it solves our $4 million problem pretty damn quickly. So, it's ratables like that. And a relationship that, I was able to nurture because and again, there's a lot of eyes and it's making me feel a little uncomfortable, but, I have this dialogue because I'm a business owner. I have this dialogue because I'm an entrepreneur. I have this dialogue because I work with big numbers all the time on big projects where, you sit down with these guys and they smell that you're the real deal. And it's been really nice for Connor Ecker over at the partnership and Steve Gross to vouch for me in that respect, because it gives me some validity. So when I sit with people like Garnet Health or Walmart or the state and the feds in terms of developing the Wallkill corridor development over by the train station, these things matter because they know that you are smart about your money and they know that you're smart about development and that you're not going to sell the town short just for a quick win. I talk a lot about sustainable growth and what that translates to. These, again, are all the skill sets that I came to the table with that I'm going to keep at the discussion so that inside of 5 years or 4 years, we are going to be in a place where the town is going to be earning back fund balance, and we'll be able to talk about, why we can add some police officers or why we can expand DPW or think about a new parks and recreation expansion that actually, mirrors what we see in Middletown with programming, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a conversation right now with the city of Middletown's mayor and the senator about doing a swim facility at Francher Davidge Park in partnership with city of Middletown. It's these kinds of projects that I think bring value to our community. It's not just bringing playground equipment to the parks. It's actually making sure that there are more parks and, not just regular playground equipment, but, ADA compliant equipment at every park and, other facilities like swim facilities and programming, like the city of Middletown has. And, the city of Middletown is a city, so they get a little bit of a different kind of approach by the state and county, mostly the state. But I'm interested in doing those programs, and and it's not just I'm interested in it, and so I'd like to look at it like someone might fawn over a Ferragamo bag. But I'm engaged, and I'm having these discussions so that regardless as to whether or not I'm in the chair, the thing is going to actually happen because it's important to me. That's what's going on in the world of commerce in the town of Wallkill. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's come back to the campaign. So you are running again
Yeah.
for reelection um, come this November. So you're asking voters to return you to the office. Why do you want another term?
Well, I think I've talked a lot about how really a lot of what I'm doing requires more than just 1 year. The real trick in this 1 year anomaly is that it's not really long enough to do a whole lot of anything substantial. And much of what the town is faced with is paramount stuff. It's not tiny stuff. It's fixing the books. It's creating a new fund balance conduit. It's resetting the economic engine for the town. I mean, when I got elected this past November, I got a phone call from Steve Newhouse who said, "Thank God, Frank, now can you open up the town of Wallkill?" I'm like, "What do you mean? The town of Wallkill's always been open." He's like, "No, I'm sorry, it has not been." And it's been a real eye opener because it hasn't been. And that's sad to me because the town of Wallkill has always been a strong economic engine for the county. So my hope is to, bring that back in spades, like really make it shouldn't be that we hold, second fiddle to Monroe or Newburgh. We should be the cornerstone because we're at the crossroads. I mean, Monroe a little bit
That's
too,
true.
and Newburgh a little bit too because they're on the water, but to a lesser extent. And what we really are is we're looking at the crossroads of two interstates, and that positions the town really well for a Northeast conversation about distribution, like in the Walmart situation, like manufacturing. We're talking very strongly to a manufacturing company that is relocating out of China. They moved their operation to China. They're coming back on into the States, and they're looking at the town of Wallkill at the old ball factory. So we're very hopeful. When I say, use the royal we, we're very hopeful that they continue to push forward and choose the town of Wallkill. That dovetails into creating a manufacturing hub, creating a retail hub, creating a living hub where people are excited to be in the area, creating an entertainment hub where people don't have to feel like they are compelled to go to New York City to see a show. They can come up here and see a show. I was serious about a civic center. I've been talking to the county about a civic center. I think that we need one. I think it belongs in Wallkill for the entire county. I think that brings commerce to the town. It brings cheer families and who are doing national competitions and maybe boat shows and wild fishing game shows and rock and roll shows that may not have a venue here. I mean, maybe it's something that they're looking for that's a little bit bigger than the Paramount or the
Yeah.
theater over at Sugarloaf. Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's a bus and truck. Maybe it's a show of Great Gatsby comes in, and you can see it here rather than go over to Eisenhower Hall, which is having a shrinking season because we're in the middle of a war and it's the university for the army, so they have other interests with their hall. But that shouldn't mean that you shouldn't be able to get some good culture here in the town of Wallkill. You shouldn't have to leave here. These are the kind of these are the kind of things that we're looking to do to help spur that engine along. It's sputtering a little bit. Just need to open up the carburetor. That's all. Just a little bit, little air. Just need a little air.
So let's see. So, of course, homeowners are going to ask this, and I'm sure people who are watching are wondering, what should Wallkill taxpayers realistically expect their own taxes to do? And will we see? And if there is an increase, will it be a substantial one?
Well, I wish I had the answer to that question now. I probably am not going to have the answer to that question until probably if I'm being completely accurate, the closest I think we'll be able to have that answer is the beginning of October, middle of October. What I can say to you, and I said this this morning at the DPW at the garage, the town has for many, many years functioned as a very poorly run mom and pop operation. It has deferred maintenance on items that it really should have spent money on. It has capped the growth of departments that it should have expanded. And so we've got some ground to make up to really make this worthwhile. And all of that costs money. Just because we're the town, we are like everybody else. We have to pay money too, to have things that are nice and to have things that are working. And if you, I don't think anybody wants a town that's doing the bare minimum. I think we want, the town to do the best and have the nicest stuff that we can have for the money that we're willing to spend. The town taxpayers are going to have to decide what that is. At the end of the day, I don't know what the number is going to be. I can tell you that by staying underneath or at the cap for the past decade, the town has shot itself in the foot operationally. It has not managed to keep up its maintenance, either of the water or sewer system in a way that it really is commensurate with the size of town that we are, or with the police department as we work to cover the activity that happens on 211. And, again, I say City of Middletown's problems are the Town of Wallkill's problems. So, whatever crime the City of Middletown is experiencing, the Town of Wallkill experiences as well. We should have a robust police department and that is not struggling to staff shifts. Right now, that's not necessarily the case. I spend a lot of money. The town spends a lot of money on overtime, and that is specific to the fact that we need the individuals in the patrol cars that we need when we need them. It's not one of those things that you can schedule, and so they have to be available when we need them, and that costs a lot of money when you're pushing people into overtime. Yeah. So I don't know what to say aside from that, other than I believe that the Town of Wallkill residents are smart and they recognize that there's a struggle and they recognize that there's a shortfall, and they understand, they live in the world too, and they understand the cost of things, and that the town is faced with those same costs. So I'm hopeful that we can keep it as small as possible, as always, because it's my tax dollars too. But, we'll know more in October.
Okay. Well, we can always circle back around.
I'm sure I'll want to say lots of words about that in October.
Yes. And you might actually be closer to having more audits done. So that's also another reason.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so.
So you could definitely update folks who are either watching this right now or who will catch it later on. Let me see. Do you have anything? Oh, here. Trick question. Well, not really, but what's a criticism of Frank DenDanto that you think is actually fair?
Long-winded.
Good answer. Good answer. Oh, man. So look, when residents are deciding who should be town supervisor, what question do you think they should be asking both candidates?
Can you do the job? Can you legit do the job? One of the things I think that we don't spend a lot of time on when we elect people is whether or not they actually can do the job. And I think that there's a lot to be said for an individual skill set. And I think that I'm just going to say it. I think that I have what it takes to sit in a chair and get this thing fixed. And I think that if you can't see that in the energy and accomplishments we've done just in this short period of time, even as a part-time supervisor, I just, if I had part-time employees that were as productive as me, I don't think I'd ever hire full-time anybody. The reality is this: you got to be able to do it. You got to be effective, and
with your time.
Yeah, you got to be effective with your time.
Nothing.
Right. You got to be effective with your time. You got to be effective with your time management. You got to be effective with your relationships. You got to be effective with, and not, I hope to have a relationship. You got to have relationships at the table. It's a job interview, right? This is the thing. It's a job interview. That. Yeah. And so here's what you get with me. You get a seasoned executive leader who has both the mental prowess and the stamina to stay in the game with the hours that I carry 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And am happy to be in the game in that respect, because I really look at this as moving the dial from a professional place. Like, this is the accomplishment to fix the books. This is the accomplishment to reset the town economic engine. That's it. And that's why I've come to the table with term limits, because I don't want to sit in the chair forever. So I have sorry, the dogs, they think
I hear them.
they don't want me in the chair forever either. I don't see them enough. But the idea is you got to get the job done. You don't kick the can down. You got to take on the heavy lift. You got to be responsible and take on the heavy lift. And, what we saw in past administrations is can kicking. And what we saw in past administrations is an inability to understand what their fiduciary and fiscal responsibilities are. And what we saw in past administrations, and those same administrations want to come back, I think, in some respects, is that, we're in the same boat together, and we have got to get through it. So you got to be able to roll up your sleeves and be able to do the job.
Agree. I don't have any more questions, but we have a group of people here who've been watching. Most of you have stuck through this since the beginning. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like to pose? I know Jim asked a couple of questions. Oh, I think I may have. Did I miss this one? Information. Oh, wait, Jim had another question, and I'm sorry I missed this earlier. So I'm going to put this on the stream on the screen. A lot of important information is on our town website, but it's not easy to search and navigate. Any plans to upgrade and bring it into the 21st century? Yeah, it is kind of a bear to get through.
Yes, it is. And honestly, as of 28, it will be illegal. The town is engaged right now in finding both a server provider and a design partner to bring our website into ADA compliance. We're currently not ADA compliant. By 28, New York State has mandated that we have to be ADA compliant. So too is the federal government. So I can see the federal government maybe walking back on that, but I can't see New York State walking back on that. So we are hard pressed right now to identify who that vendor is going to be and get our website designed so that in 27, it becomes one of the first things that gets managed.
Nice. And I did post a note from Eric Vasquez, but we didn't speak about it. So he was going back to your idea about a civic center, not just a civic center, but a centralized place for community to gather, a mall parking lot, leave something to be desired.
That's
How do you feel
true.
about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I think that one of the things that even the mall folks will tell you is that, all that impervious macadam with empty parking spaces doesn't do anything but become an eyesore, and it should be better utilized. And, a civic center is a hub from a community standpoint. And, it's not just outside vendors coming in to use the community center from an entertainment standpoint. It's local individuals using the community center for quilt shows and for, dance events and other things that can be programmed in a large open space. And I think Eric makes a very good point there that we don't spend enough time talking about how to build out community. We have a very tight community at the town of Wallkill, but it's very small. And it needs to be bigger, and we need to do better at making it bigger. And part of that is making opportunities and finding places like the mall's parking lots where it makes sense because it's central, and it makes sense because it helps to spur the economic engine.
Yeah. And to that point, can you give, this is just me asking this, the fairgrounds? Like, that's sort of been our civic area for the county for years, but it's not looking so great. Now it's a racetrack. Isn't being maintained. And I understand was it sold? Is it being sold?
So the race. So let me just clarify real quick. It was a racetrack before it was a fairgrounds.
I didn't know.
A lot of people don't know that. And it's the longest operating dirt track in the United States right now. But it has the format of dirt track racing has dwindled. And obviously, as we saw, the fair has dwindled. It's not even a notion of what it used to be back in the 80s. And there are other things that are taking precedence in areas that are a little bit more rural when you're out looking for a country county fair that the town doesn't speak to anymore. Really, the county doesn't speak to anymore. So yes, the fairgrounds has been a topic of conversation for many years now. It is in contract. The owner of the fairgrounds is currently negotiating a sale to Crow Holdings. And the exercise that I inserted myself in really again in January, because this discussion about a Wallkill development corridor and this idea of a civic center was born out of a sit down that happened with me just after the election with Steve Gross and Connor Eckert, who said very pointedly to me, we at the county believe that the county needs a civic center. We did a study and we hoped that the study would tell us that the place would be Monroe. And it didn't tell us that. It told us the place was Town of Wallkill. And I was like, well, that's great news. I could have told you that. And you wouldn't have to pay me to do the study. So I said, but I don't want this. I don't want the fairgrounds to be taken over as a civic center. I think the fairgrounds has a different application. I think the fairgrounds needs to stay a fairgrounds, certainly the oval area, and that maybe could be some development around the fairgrounds. But honestly, getting traffic in and out of the fairgrounds has always been a headache. And so I think I think that if we're talking about, doing a civic center, we should talk about something easy to get on and off the highway to. But really what I'd like to do is be involved in this discussion at the fairgrounds. And so I sort of inserted myself in that conversation and have negotiated, I think, the beginning parts of a development idea that treats the fairgrounds as a mixed-use residential commercial build-out, campus style, with walking patterns so that you can, walk from either single-family homes or condominiums to Price Chopper, walk to D. Phillips, walk across what will be an open fairgrounds park that will incorporate the entire oval and then some of the backfield. So we're going to keep all of that space green, and then really sort of develop itself to look a lot like what's on the hillside next to the high school. So the idea would be to build out the community, again, this idea of community development, so that it had a neighborhood feel to it that was walkable. Again, much of my response in terms of development has to do with either economic smartness, or being savvy to walkability or transit usage. And I think that if I lived in a community where I could walk over to a couple restaurants, whether it was, Mr. Sushi or, Texas Roadhouse, or walk up to D. Phillips or hang out on the grass in a big open oval, not unlike hanging out at Central Park or Park Slope, on the lawn, that matters. And then, you hop on your bike and you ride somewhere. You don't have to get in your car for everything. You can, spend most of your day just chilling out, walking to the things that you want to go see. So, I'm already pushing on that project in that direction. And it looks like that project wants to go in that direction. I'm getting really good feedback from everyone who's at the table. So I feel confident that that's kind of how that's going to shake itself out in the next year and a half or 2 years. So yeah.
Yeah. And so Eric has said a couple of things. First, he said he was talking about something that includes green space. I think you already addressed that. And here he said a hamlet concept, walking space, homes, and a small MLM pop shops, keeping commerce nearby homes. Yeah.
Yes. And that's exactly correct. And again, this has that European neighborhood feel to it, where you don't have to get in your car to go get your paper and cannoli or your paper and bread for the, rolls on the Sunday morning. And then, if you want to take everybody out for sushi, you just walk over to Fuji or walk over to Mr. Sushi, and you go that way. And if you need to go grocery shopping, you walk over to Price Chopper. Like, all of it's walking distance. Now, I will also like to add really quickly that back in 20 and 21, I had this grand idea of a walking path that went from the back part of Scotchtown, so back behind Hannaford's, across
Yes.
211, down onto the O&W rail trail, and then turning the old O&W rail tracks, which ties into the Orange County Rail Trail in Middletown, all along Shutt Road. That rail trail would literally bisect the Orange County Fairgrounds development. So you could literally get on your bike right out of your house and hop on the rail trail and ride to Goshen. Never have to get in your car. Like that.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
And if you were extra healthy, you could ride all the way to Monroe. So
Yeah, no, that's not me. I'm not doing that. My knees ache just thinking about that.
Yeah. I'm just, but it's exciting that you could do that. And imagine the kind of individuals that would be interested in doing that.
Definitely.
Who's going to, who comes up, who relocates to Wallkill? People who are living in urban environments from Yonkers or from the Bronx or from Brooklyn, who are used to getting on trains or riding their bikes. Dude, you can ride your bike. You'll ride your bike down to Monroe. No problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. People are used to having everything clustered in a community, people who are not from the city, which I don't think anybody here, maybe a few people, but most of us who either from Long Island or the city, or living in suburbia, we're used to having things nearby. You start to come up here and it's we're suburban, but we're also more rural suburban, sort of quasi. And it can be shell shocking if you're used to having everything nearby and within walking distance.
Really close.
So,
it's true. It's 100% true. And you're not the first person to say that to me. It's not the first time I've heard it. In fact, I've heard it quite a bit. I will also say too, that, for those people who are relocating, we've watched, for those of us who've been here this entire time, I've watched the traffic quadruple, right? So there was a time where navigating 211 on a Saturday wasn't an all day event. Now it can be. And I think that speaks volumes to the amount of traffic. And I think that for quality of life, we need to speak to that amount of traffic. So we need to speak to how to solve those problems. And we're doing some of it now, in terms of, working with DOT on setting light timing and, the low hanging fruit part of it. But really what we need to do is think about a broader approach that speaks to walkability or bicycleability, something that is easier to do, and think about local community growth, i.e. hamlet growth, where there are a couple stores in your immediate vicinity where you can get, the bare essentials if you need the bare essentials, or you can grab a bite to eat, stuff of that nature.
Yes. So I think we're winding up here. We've covered a lot. So, we'll see if any more questions pop in, before we go. But I have one question. Obviously it's a campaign season. Would you be willing to debate your opponent?
I'm hoping. I am truly hoping. I'm hoping, Denise, that you'll host. But if you don't host, I'm hoping that the people over at Wildflowers will. They did against when I was running against Ralph. And that actually was, I think, a very good event. It was small and it was instant. There wasn't a whole lot of noise around it, but perhaps maybe we could throw you into the mix and we can make it bigger. But I absolutely want to have some conversations with my opponent. I think that, as I had mentioned in the past, I think that she just doesn't have a platform. There hasn't been a solid platform pushed forward really by anybody on the other side. There's been a lot of talking points about how we got to go backwards. I think that's a huge mistake. And I think that anybody in the town who thinks about that for any more than a minute will say, why would we want to go back to the world that had us in a financial disaster? But I think that that's something that I would like to hear directly from her. And I think that the only way that you can judge a good character, judge the character of your candidate, is to listen to the good words that they have to say. I'm more than happy to get into the debating ring. In fact, I really hope that she takes me up on my offer. I've actually put that out in front of her a couple times out on social media. I've gotten crickets. Hopefully, maybe you can get something going. I don't know. I have not been so successful, but yes, the short answer is yes.
What do you think, folks? For the folks that are watching here, would you like to see a debate? We could either do it here, or we could even like coordinate with, with Wildflowers and set something up, and we can do it live here while it's being done there in front of those folks over at Wildflowers. Whether you're here watching this now, or if you catch this afterwards after it's recorded and uploaded, let us know in the comments if you want to see debate between Frank and Jill Wilkins, who is the opponent running for supervisor. Definitely let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She seems to have a lot to say. I mean, she has a lot of signs out, but
she's got a lot of signs. The signs are
yeah. The signs are a little bit much.
It's overkill. It's overkill with the signs.
Here's the other thing too, and this is part of the conversation. There is an ordinance in town that says no signs before 60 days. But the opposition doesn't seem to want to follow the rules. And I think that that's really the rub, is that either you're following the rules or you're not following the rules. Either you say you're all about doing and saying nice things, or you're not, and you're flinging mud. It doesn't take anybody much time to find the AI generated handiwork that is, out in the universe with my likeness kicking around. I can't wait for my attorneys to get that under wraps. But I'm just saying, since I have this newfound love for being in front of the microphone, perhaps maybe I should get myself an agent. It seems to have worked out for some of the bigger hitters. Mr. Downey and I believe Deadpool, the guy who plays Deadpool, he just
Ryan Reynolds.
He just got himself an excellent deal.
For what, a podcast?
To AI generate likenesses. Like if you use his AI generated likeness, he gets like $1 million every time you use it. So.
Oh, nice.
I know, right?
It's like we don't do movies anymore. We just do AI.
It's kind of crazy. But hopefully, I don't know, maybe she'll change course, but there's more than enough AI schlock out there. That's not really my thing. I'm all for actually, meat and potatoes kind of stuff. So I would prefer the debate. So I'm hoping you can pull it together and do that for us. I think that would be good.
Yeah, I think, and you know what? I know that they snoop our sites and stuff. You're getting your answers right here. Just the folks that are watching this live are absolutely in favor.
It is good to hear from all sides. I agree. It's good to hear from all sides. And listen, I don't have all the answers. I'm not looking to even have a conversation about sides. I wish that we weren't even having a conversation about sides. Town politics is not something that there really should be sides in. I think either you're doing what's necessary for the town or you're not doing what's necessary for the town. So it's not really a red or blue discussion. And I will also say too, that if you hear me talk long enough, you might find yourself wondering which side I'm on. But I can tell you that the reality is that that's a real thing. I've had that levied at me.
It's this one. Nailed it. That's it right there. Nailed it.
Hey, listen, AI is they're making viruses now. So maybe all those. What was that movie there with Will Smith? They had the guy that the AI became sentient.
Yes,
I'm telling you, Terminator. This is the problem being a Gen Xer. This is the problem being a Gen Xer.
Was that Will Smith? It wasn't Terminator.
No, Terminator wasn't Will Smith. That was the 90s. He
was in the one where they were using cameras. That's a surveillance movie where they were watching him.
Yes.
Watching him. Yeah, we're there now.
We're there. Yeah. If you were watching movies in the 90s, we're there. If you're watching movies in the 80s, we're there. We're there.
We're beyond there.
I think that's why I'm so cynical. But
we're in the Matrix at this point. I'm wondering when they're going to be using when are they going to be using our bodies to feed the AI for energy?
Do not give them ideas, Denise. Don't give them ideas.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
Wow.
there you go.
This
Hopefully we'll have a real in live person debate. It'll be good.
Yes, yes. So guys, listen, we're gonna wind up here. This has been great. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes, and I think we covered a lot of stuff. Folks, if you got anything out of this, if you'd like to see more, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Always check, even if you are subscribed. Enemy of the State. That was the movie. Thank you. But yeah, make sure you're checking your subscriptions because subscriptions have been disappearing from content creators lately.
No,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
good.
You know what? We're living in, like I said, we're living in the control state, and occasionally people see their subscriptions disappearing. So you'll need to have the notifications turned on, the little bell, and have it set to all. Otherwise, you just lose us. We just get buried. But definitely, and also you've been leaving comments here. Leave comments after this is posted in the recorded. Once it's recorded and posted. All right, guys, and we will definitely have Frank back. Hopefully, we will have Frank and Jill here for a debate. We'll keep you posted on that. And thanks so much. If you stayed here to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Let us know what you think. It's been great.
Yeah.
Take
Thank you,
care,
everybody.
guys. Thank you. All right. Take care.